again. Believe it or not, we are in the last Saturday of August. And today, as usually, we normally have the very last Saturday to the study of this fantastic book, On the Way to a World of Regeneration, because it's basically talking of the present time, of the right here and the right now. We are living that transition, that movement towards the world of regeneration. And Leo Vieira is going to bring us today the highlights from chapters 14 and 15. And this is our eighth session, believe it or not. So we're not going to take more time for Leo, our special guest speaker, and we're going to listen to his highlights. Okay, thank you. And remember, if you are watching us online, to post your questions in the WhatsApp or YouTube or Facebook. Thank you.
Good afternoon and good evening for those who will be following us later on, as well as good morning for those who will be watching us, whatever time you'll be watching us on demand later on. Very excited to be here with everyone again, discussing chapters 14 and 15, as Alba said, session eight, right, of this amazing book, On the Way to a World of Regeneration. There are a lot of things that, interestingly enough, that Alba said that kind of goes hand in hand with what we're studying here, right? That, and I'll try to remember as many as possible and connect with this. Yes, we're living this right now. We're in this transition that we are for sure on the way to a world of regeneration, and it depends on us, right, to make sure that we are also on the way to a world of regeneration. And we'll see a little bit of that, that perhaps through our dedication, efforts, persistence, right, courage as well, because it takes a lot of courage, we will be together in this regenerative moment of planet Earth and all the beings who attune to this idea as well. The second thing that I would say is that she said, and I would like to highlight, is towards prayer, right? We have learned through the studies from Manuel de Miranda, through the hands of Divaldo Franco in this book, that prayer is one of the ways that we can make sure that we are on this way, right? We are connecting ourselves to this idea of regeneration in the now for ourselves and for others as well who connect with us. And for sure, we connect with one another. The reason I say this is because chapter 12, especially chapter 13, is a preparation, along with chapter 14 that we're going to see today, is a preparation to chapter 15. We cannot in these insights, sometimes it only dawns on us on when we're reading. After we read, it's like, oh, now it makes sense why we talk about investigations continue, right? The preparation of a revered visitor to get to visit what we will see today, the city of justice. Just a highlight quickly of chapter 13, Manuel de Miranda dove into this idea of how we are living right now, our psychosphere, the way we live, the way we think, the way we feel, how that attracts others in the same tone. How do we connect with the environment that has been also created by others, right? The attunement and all of that. So please watch session 7. It was only one chapter because it's very dense. It's a lot of information, and I would love to invite everyone not only to watch session 7, but also to make sure that you're reading the whole book as well. I always say this because it is an amazing book. Once more, as Albert said, we're living this. Why not get ourselves prepared to what's to come, right? And it's there for a reason. right? It's there for a reason, to elevate ourselves. So let us dive into chapter 14. What is chapter 14? It's a preparation for a meeting to receive a revered visitor, right? And I want to go over real quick with you folks on the location, the environment, and that I will highlight as well. One of the things that Manuel de Miranda highlights in this chapter is the time that this location where they're meeting has been there. Okay, because it's not by chance. In the next highlight, and I like to say this highlights before, just to kind of get everybody prepared, is that we will see how long it has been there, and again, it's a highlight of how much goodness have been working towards humanity, towards you and I, because this is not only, as we're going to see, in certain regions of the planet, but also the whole planet. And I would say in connection with other planets as well, who wants us to see well, right? And what I would like to do is to kind of give some title to the passages so we can kind of connect with the highlights. Again, yes, that is something that Leo is proposing, but perhaps if you read, it will be something else, right? So, us and the higher minds. With natural anticipation, this is the beginning of the chapter. We look forward to the special meeting with members of several working groups similar to ours. The Lord's mercy had determined that this assistance be carried out on an urgent basis so that the process of suffering could be alleviated through the appropriate energy resources. Yes. It meant that by connecting the two vibrational states, the incarnate and discarnate, the action of good is constant and immediate. It would be enough for the needy to tune in the sources of love to soon receive the answer in blessings of peace and courage. Prayer, again, that's why I said that what Alba said is very pertinent. Prayer certainly does not remove the pain, nor does it prevent the devil from repairing the wrong, but it alleviates, gives strength, and brings inner harmony to better solve problems. The pleas came from both planes of life, the discarnate and the incarnate, obviously, along with disturbances caused by the forces of evil in their hostile and violent realms, trying to break the institutions, its spiritual defenses, and penetrate its inner core to generate difficulties and exasperation. A lot of information, right? But what is he trying to say here? There is a work to be done, but the work can be done more effectively if both sides connect. Rest assured that the information that we have been bringing here by Manuel de Miranda, what we're going to bring here today, and much more in the future, whether by this group of spirits and others, is happening. But how do we connect? We have to do our part. We have to pray. We have to elevate ourselves. And when that happens, when we tap into the sources of love, guess what? It's more effective, right? But it depends on us. That's why, again, regeneration is not something in the future, it's in the now, right? It's right here. I don't care what others are saying. Well, I shouldn't say I don't care. It's important what others are doing. Let me correct myself here. I am sorry. Sometimes we want to say that, right? But it's important what others are doing, yes. But it's not for me to point a finger first and then think about changing myself. It's me, and perhaps through my action, those individuals will help themselves as well, and then they will follow, with the same ideas. Get the picture? So it's us in this higher mind, and once more, he says this because in order for us to get to the meeting and to the individuals, and I say individuals here, spirits from both sides of life, that they will encounter, guess what? We have to elevate ourselves. And that is the challenge that I want to bring to our discussion today. How do we elevate ourselves? How do we get to tap into this sources of love? Why we're not able to do so? I'm saying a lot right at the beginning because I want to get everybody thinking and feeling as well. The work continues with pushback. So Manuel de Miranda also continued by saying that the work that they had done in the meetings before the prior meeting, the prior night, which it took a lot from some of the individuals who were being attacked in the Spiritist Center, the location where they were located in the physical plane, um, took a lot from them, right? But they learned a lot. The medium was helped, that who had to work a lot. The individuals who prayed, they were able to be helped, and we're going to see a little bit of this. So, but rest assured that the work continued, because right after, they had more individuals, more spirits, suffering spirits, and incarnated ones as well, suffering and asking for help, right? So it doesn't mean that we do one meeting, we go through that, tomorrow everything is going to be perfect. No, it's continuation, right? It's this continued work that is being done. It is understandable that avengers and justice makers become irate with those who, in a spirit of solidarity and fraternal charity, assist individuals suffering their implacable persecution. The code of justice are never defrauded, and everything is regulated under the auspice of love. Um, I'm gonna stop right here because, again, a highlight on what we have learned about the justice makers and these are avengers as well. We're gonna see a little bit more because I want to highlight this towards the end. But any goodness that is being performed on planet Earth today, especially under the banner of Christianity, okay, is being attacked. And these justice makers have nothing no direct connection with us, who are again working to better ourselves, especially again under the banner of Christianity. It's not that I'm going out there and trying to be, trying to give food to other people or anything like that. Just by the simple fact that we're trying to better ourselves under the name of Christianity, we're being attacked. So it's not just, oh, this beautiful group of people, they're being, no, it's all of us. Because if we accept through Spiritism, as we study, the fact that we have a God, a creator, who wants us to progress under the guidance of our Master Jesus, as we have learned through Spiritism, that we are being governed by Jesus, the governor of the planet, the most the most pure example that we have received on earth, right? Guess what? We'll be attacked. It's not by chance. It's not just because, oh, they're going to pick these people, to go after them. It's for what we have done in the past against these spirits. And they still living the suffering that many of us have imposed on them in the past. Leo, but what do I have to do with, this or that? It has been 2,000 years, have been, 1,000 years, whatever that is. We go back to, we have mentioned here in some of the sessions as well, the different issues that we have caused through the Crusades, through all of these things, that I'm a different person. Well, guess what? Right here, the codes of justice are never defrauded, and everything is regulated under the auspice of love. Now they're knocking on our door, right? And we feel this every now and then. And I'm not trying to make this easier, but to at the end of the day, we need to do that, right? And we need, but it's not by chance. We are making little strides, but sometimes we feel this. We feel the indignation of some of the things that we still see, right? So if we have that inside of us, guess what? We were there. If we feel the attacks, it's not by chance. Otherwise, what kind of God this would be, right? So just for us to think, and we're going to see a little bit more of this. So Malvina, who was the medium who worked in the night prior, she was helped, right? Gurmesindo was assisted and felt in an excellent spiritual state. Well, excellent spiritual state. Gurmesindo was the gentleman who was actually praying after his wife created this turmoil in the Spiritist Center, saying that he had an affair with one of the workers of the house, along with someone else, another individual as well, because their wives were being attacked, saying they were having an affair. Let's go ahead and create a turmoil there by these justice makers, right? Was she just a victim? No, she had a past also that, well, they had a past, the two ladies there, they had a past that was questionable, like we all do, right? But I wanted to highlight this because it just doesn't, make any sense for us to say, okay, why were they helped? Um, Not because obviously there's goodness, but also the other side was helped as well, right? So, to give in continuation, last night's meeting had been a great benefit to him and his wife in terms of Gurmesindo. With the removal of the malevolent spirit that tormented her, she began to deeply reflect on her behavior, whose significant improvement was noticed by her husband. He realized that his prayer had been heard and that during the night he had received the guidance he needed. No one will ever walk in loneliness and suffering if their thoughts are rising to the source of love. The beneficial assistance will soon come to them. Once more, a highlight on how important it is to connect with the higher minds. During the moment, the critical moment that he was feeling, oh, I don't know what to do anymore, and he receives a call from someone else who was going through the same thing, he says, let me pick up the Gospel according to Spiritism and read because I don't know what to do, right? It reminds me of what Susanna said last week for us, right? When Daniel asked what to do when you're in despair, don't do anything. Because most likely you're going to be doing something that you'll regret later on, right? So just a great reminder there. So let's talk about the meeting, the location. He's preparing us again with all this idea of prayer, connection with the higher minds to get to this meeting. It says the following. The meeting actually took place in the heart of Amazon, the Amazon region. The location was marked by beauty and bright colors, as well as the movement of spirits and communal vehicles in the full splendor of the forest seen from above. A circular building, recalling a smaller Roman Colosseum, projected special lighting made of the same material with which it was built. Other smaller buildings were distributed in a rectangular format, with the well designed streets gently bathed by the exuberance of the moonlight. The Colosseum was almost completely filled with countless spirits from both planes of life, the physical and the spirit worlds. Throughout time, this community has come to the rescue of indigenous people, our brothers and sisters who inhabited these forests in the initial stages of the anthropological evolutionary process. Once more, let me break it down for you. Number one, very important. This is in the spirit realm. This is not on planet Earth, right? In the physical realm, right? It's on planet Earth, but it's in the spirit realm, connected with planet Earth. I wanted to highlight this because sometimes we're like, Leo, what are they talking about, right? And this is on the Amazon region, right? We look at the construction that, it's beautiful. I mean, the way, and this is just a quick highlight of what Manuel de Miranda brings to us, but the amount of work that it takes to create such a location, right? To connect and to rescue and to help. Again, we see here indigenous people who are in that region are suffering, right? And he also highlights that it's not only in the area of Brazil, but also it goes as far as the other islands that are nearby, the Caribbean islands as well. So it's a huge area that this place was actually created to help, right? And the one final thing that is very interesting, that not only discarnated spirits or the spirits in the spirit realm, but also incarnated spirits were invited to go to that location. So here's my question. Just like you and I, these spirits at that time that this happened, they were sleeping and they went to this meeting. I would love to go to this meeting and we're going to see it. But why do I don't go? And I ask myself, why can't I go to a place like this? Well, number one, we can say, Leo, you have no business there because, again, I mean, you could be working someplace else, but I would like to go. I'd like to see what it is to connect with this, at least with the architecture that I'll be looking at. I'm like, oh my God, this is so nice, right? But there's more to it. I'm not there yet. And again, I'm speaking for myself. I'm not there yet morally and spiritually speaking. My thoughts does not connect with the thoughts of these higher minds that are going to these locations. And I'm not putting Leo down or anybody down, but it's just a challenge to all of us to connect with the higher minds. All, Well, Alba is saying, what if we don't remember? We'll get that to the end. Remind me of that question. Okay. Other specific communities from different regions found in that culture the resources to erect their regional buildings. It was like a central headquarters to spread blessings throughout South America and some Caribbean islands, as we said. For this reason, this community had been selected to welcome the leaders of groups in activity in the lands of the Southern Cross and, which would be a way to describe Brazil, and neighboring countries. Representatives of this extraordinary network were arriving to collectively receive clarifications for these relevant moments in human life. And we're talking about the transition that we were going through because this happening during the pandemic here, right? I want to highlight just one thing before we go on is that the place being being picked or being chosen to host these higher minds is not because, oh, we're going to create this to host these people. Yeah, that can happen as well, but it was because of the continuous work of this location got them to also merit the visit of these higher minds. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like, okay, we're not going to create just a special place. No, this has been there for quite some time. The goodness that they have been doing, it was propitious enough now to receive these higher minds. So it's like one will be a consequence of the hard work that we do, or this is a consequence of the hard work that they did for the longest time ever, right? And we see a little bit more about this. Present there were Afro descendants, indigenous shamans, including those from non-cultured tribes, guided by selfless mentors from different regions' beliefs, in order to receive guidance and apply it according to their capacity of understanding. Surprised, I saw a group of noble spirits arrive, led by Marshal Rondon, the explorer of Western Brazil, along with other Hispanic figures that had dedicated their lives on the planet to the glorious stories of heroism of their religious faith and the spiritual achievements related to the countries in which they had been reborn. In the meantime, the sound system announced the imminent arrival of Ambassador Ismael, who would take part in the solemn meeting. I confess I was unable to curb my curiosity, keeping my eyes on the entrance of the venue, through which entered a select group of spirits guide, including José de Anchieta and Manuel de Nóbrega, who accompanied Dr. Bezerra de Menezes Cavalcanti as he was escorted to the large stage. Number one, all of these spirits that are saying here, these are very important individuals within the transition, or let's say uh, the legacy, the spiritual legacy that Brazil has in terms of this spiritual transformation, right? Some of them who worked tireless through Christianity in Brazil, through Catholicism, right? And some of them who just dedicate their lives to the needy, and it's not the needy meaning the poor people, but the less fortunate ones that need help, right? The indigenous people, the Afro descendants, so on and so forth, that we know that through time had some suffering, a lot of suffering, right? The other point that we would like to bring here, this the Ismael, the spirit Ismael, right? We learn about Ismael first of all in the book Brazil, that relates to Brazil, right? The I'm trying to translate, Daniel. Help me here. Brazil, the heart of the world, the heart of the gospel. Thank you. That that is, it's brought to us that Jesus, with this high order spirits, Jesus is gives this high order spirit the ability to conduct Brazil to become this place where Christianity, the new Christian will be implemented. The new Christianity will be implemented in Brazil as well. It's a beautiful book. Unfortunately, not in English yet. Hopefully soon, that we'll be able to read and understand a little bit more about this. That doesn't mean, and we're going to see here, that doesn't mean that United States, Spain, Congo, New Zealand doesn't have a high order spirit like this. They do, because they also have their part in the world, right? So we're highlighting this here, and I will make my point. in a little bit about this idea of why we hear about Ismael or about all these spirits in Brazil when we hardly hear anybody from anywhere in the world. The question is there. But let me continue with this. Take a look at this picture. I know it's kind of hard to bring there, but this is actually the Declaration of the Independence oil canvas by John Trumbull, 1818. It's in the U.S. Capitol Rotunda right now in Washington, D.C. This is what we also see on behind the $2 bill. If we go to Massachusetts as well, we'll see this beautiful painting stent as well on the wall there, one of the museums too. It's a beautiful moment that marked our history in this country, right? But yes, I mean, this is what we have. Now, think about this. When did this happen, right? These spirits, whether we like it or not, we can agree that these spirits had already in mind a construction of a new beginning for humanity, right? To establish a new country, to work towards something that was way greater than where we came from, right? To liberate us from the tyranny, as if some of us may not like the idea of what we were suffering in other parts of the world. Now, fast forward, if these individuals back then had already this determination in life, imagine now. Where are they now? Where are they morally speaking, spiritually speaking, right? And we have the confirmation from a very good source that the works of the Spirit Set of Baltimore also is helped by one of them, Benjamin Franklin, right? So I wanted to make this correlation so that imagine going to a meeting, this meeting right here, it's much like this meeting that happened in Brazil, where we're connecting with higher minds, not just someone, but individuals who in the past, when they reincarnated with us 100, 200 years ago, right, they already had this idea in mind of a better world, of a regenerative world as well, of the self first, right, to also regenerate the world. So much like, going to a meeting today with Benjamin Franklin, right, with John Adams, right, or we can just go on and on and on and on. Washington, what would it be to meet with Washington today? What would it be to meet with Lincoln today? To sit down and have a conversation with Lincoln? I would love to do that, right? And again, I'm just bringing these ideas because it gets us thinking. Why would I able to do that yet? Since we talk about so much about spirituality and mediumship as well, not in a egotistical way to ask, okay, what happened then? But talk to me. What can we do better, right? And allow us to listen to you. That would be something that I would like to bring to as well. Moving on. At this time, naturally, and this is the MC of the meeting saying, at this time, naturally, within their own time zones, in virtually every nation on the planet, a similar meeting is being held by the leading spirit guides of each of those countries. So again, it was not only in Brazil, the whole planet was actually meeting to bring the help that we would need, the works that would have to be laid out in those nations as well. Despite the craziness that we watched on the news, this was happening. From the Excelsis vibrations planes, he inhabits. Jesus sent his messengers to warn humankind and to declare the definitive evolutionary change about to take place on the earth. As such, the spirit guides of each country will review what is foreseen in the future days regarding inevitable transformation that has been taking place at the slower pace so far, but now needs to be accelerated. So, all under the guidance of Jesus, we see this transformation. We see throughout the world that we are receiving these guidance. It's not just in one part of the world, but whether we have certain beliefs, and it's interesting enough that Manuel de Miranda tells us that they will process as well. This is the beauty of. Let's say the guidance is go to the yellow house. Okay, that doesn't mean every single of these spirits, right, will go to the yellow house the same way. They have their own ways. They have their own ideas to get to the end destination. I'm just giving you a dumb way to kind of represent this here, but it's that they allow the minds that are receiving the information based on their understanding to put into practice whatever they hear from these meetings as well. And it's much like us when we are called. That doesn't mean that Alba will do the same thing that Leo will do. Hopefully, we'll get to the same place, but it's important for us to watch all of this as well, or to understand this as well. So let's move on to the keynote speaker, the guide of Brazil. And I'm going to read here because some of this I'm going to put some of this message here, and I'm going to read through it because it's just for us to highlight, but to feel what are the Spirit talking about, right? What does it do? Well, he starts talking about creation, the creation of our planet, right? In a very poetic way, bringing on, how we went through all the difficulties to create this planet. And now here we are, right? Again, reminding us under the guidance of our Master Jesus. And then he engages in the idea of the law of transformation, right? When we have to evolve, when we are called to evolve, and these are more than ever times of leaving on the past the old man, the old Leo, and transform ourselves into something else, right? It says the following: thanks to the immutable law, progress reached the submissive Gaia, as the planet was called by the ancient Greeks, attaining its climax at this high evolutionary stage, eliminating from its process the great tragedies and the heavy afflictions that are still part of a mechanism of moral atonement. A regenerated world where happiness can be enjoyed is now offered by the Father to his children on the earth. It is so because the Lord does not want the annihilation of the wrongdoer, but the elimination of the wrong. And out of his mercy, he will lessen the time of purification. These, therefore, are the days of inner renewal, and as a consequence, injustice, promiscuity, and the moral vileness of the majority of human beings have drawn the torments that now afflict and frighten the imprudent masses. Mark these words, because what we're going to get to towards the end of chapter 15, it's based on this. Otherwise, it wouldn't happen. And I guess what? And I add this: we will not have the capability to go on with our lives tomorrow when we get up in the morning. I know it sounds a little bit harsh, but if we don't pay attention to this right here, the love that God has towards us, of not annihilating each one of us for our wrongdoings, but annihilating the wrong that is inside of us by proposing something new, right? We will not have any hope whatsoever. Because sometimes we think that, okay, yes, we have hope. We can do things. Yes, we have faith as well. But there's the divine faith as well that we can never put aside, we can never take for granted. He continued by saying, a countless number, however, of spirits, walling in their supreme ignorance, thirsty for outrageous pleasures, do not realize the terrible ordeal that they're living and they're creating, right? Devastating horrors and follies were looming large on the horizon. Ruthless wars, starting with broken homes, communities, and countries on the brink of annihilation. And that is when everything changed. The spirit is that we have been through, the spirit is much more serious than initiated deemed, or being dealt with to bring it to a quick closure. So it didn't happen overnight, and it's not going to change overnight. The dreamed up solutions rushed in by preventive vaccines, and talking about now not only the COVID-19, but all the preventive vaccines for all the issues that we have. And providential therapies will mitigate it, but it will not solve the sufferings programmed for today's society. Undoubtedly, what has been established will come to pass, and those who prefer chaos will be exiled to similar but inferior worlds where they will feel unconceivable moral anguishes, longing for the beloved earth and the affections they have disrespected. Continue. Seeing in distance The generous mother floating in luminous space, banished will bitterly weep in the primitive orbs they deserve. And by the way, those who are following us, just trying to connect, I see Paula trying to do this as well. It's not in order, these actual paragraphs, but I'm bringing the highlights of some of the things that I found important for us to make our point. This is important too. The COVID 19 pandemic that afflicts many countries, accompanied by a more cruel one. There's another pandemic, which is the crime committed by contemptible authorities who take advantage of the moment, amassing the deceptive power and wealth over misery of thousands of victims of the infamous circumstances they create and continue to maintain. For these criminals, aware of the evil they are perpetrating, the divine providence reserves very painful rehabilitative lessons in the view of their cynicism and cruelty towards the masses, masked by suffering and relegated to abandon. These vampires of public and private assets will not be able to escape from themselves, nor will they find comfort when relief arrives, as happens with all those who exploit and cowardly abandon others. Remember when I say, folks, that we shouldn't be care, or I don't care what the next one is doing. In a way, that's what I'm saying. It's not that we don't care. We have to press on. We do care, right? But to a certain extent, we have no control of, or to a great extent, we have no control of what others are doing with those resources that are on their hands, right? Since we're talking about here the idea of these perpetrators that most of the time we put them in office, guess what? I can go, I can vote, I can do things, I can make decisions. But at the end of the day, it's on us, each of us, to be a citizen of not only the United States, in this case that we're talking about here, Brazil or any other nation, but of the universe, of something much greater than ourselves, because look, this is the whole planet, right? So I think it's important for us to really take our minds, look at the macro, but what is inside of me? How am I vibrating with this whole thing? How am I connecting with the pandemic and this other pandemic that he mentions here? Do I need a vaccine for other pandemics that is inside of me? Right? So all of this for us to think, and I'm going to move a little bit faster now because we need to move into chapter 15. We all have the incalculable treasures of love and charity to distribute everyone, everywhere, putting the candle on the unlit candlesticks so that there is always light. Over the last century, there was a time when Jesus himself came once more to the earth in order to avert the war that was about to explode on account of some arrogant and materialistic nations that are still waiting for the moment to exert their supremacy over others. His incomparable love triumphed over the despotic ambitions of delusional tyrants, becoming the reason why the method for humanity's purification is now more difficult to defeat, since the tremendous stockpile of weapons cannot destroy. Only love will have the power to triumph over the maddening battles masterminded on the earth, up until the last comeback from which will rise the victorious gospel of Jesus Christ, even if under other denominations. Wherever love, charity, and compassion thrive, the Heavenly Father will be present and set the course for the glory and peace meant for all. Let us rejoice and sing glories to the Lord and his affable and wise messenger. Why we bring this here? First of all, he calls to our attention that each one of us have the treasures of love and charity that we can distribute. And why? Right here, right under what we have learned from Jesus. Whatever denomination. I was actually listening to a philosopher, a Brazilian philosopher, really interesting, who I never heard of him saying that he follows this, or I don't think he follows any religion to tell the truth, but the way he bring Jesus and the way he says that he loves Jesus is sometimes way beyond my comprehension, being someone who loves Christianity, right? In that sense, or other people that I may have heard. But the way he brings the the what Jesus to have brought to us to love one another as ourselves and God above all things through the actions, our actions. It's just amazing, right? So each one of us have the power. It's not that we'll be competing on how much am I doing versus this person or versus that congregation or denomination. It's how much can I do more, whether in the family setting, in the spiritual center, at work, anywhere we are. Because it says here, everywhere, everywhere. So when I read this, I was like, okay, once more, I'm coming to the center to receive the passes, but I can give a little bit of myself. I can listen to what the person is saying, and I'm also going to emanate my goodness towards that group of people that are there with me because they're also suffering. And I know what suffering is. That's how we get together. And sure enough, Jesus, as he came to us, he knew our suffering as well, right? So just a beautiful highlight. And then Manuel de Miranda says at the end of the chapter something really interesting. Slowly we began to be surrounded by the sufferings and afflictions of the multitudes in their adjustment processes, which was our task to assist. So after the meeting, they finished the meeting. They were feeling this. Oh my God, was an amazing a reminder by Ismael, and thinking that this was happening all over the world was beautiful too. But they right after they are now being attacked. Well, attacked, I shouldn't say around, but surrounded by the pleas and the callings of all those who are suffering. And he says the following. Well, it's important that which was our task to assist, right? They need to assist. The laws are of reciprocity. They offer and they demand. They give and they collect. Everything in nature obeys this to and from motion that ends in magnificent harmony. And we can encompass here all our lives with them who are asking for help nowadays, or perhaps those who are knocking on our door. They're no longer asking, they're no longer offering, but they're demanding from us, right? They're not only giving the opportunity to us for us to help, but they're collecting. They say, I want, and we see this at the Spiritual Center. We see this when we go to certain places that we are helping directly the needy, right? Because they don't think that they need, but they're really collecting, asking. No, they're supposed to do for me. And most of the time we do this as well towards others, right? So it goes beyond our comprehension on how much these individuals, and many times ourselves, we are in this position as well. But at the end, harmony will come. A sense of self-pity and compassion came over me as I consider how far I still find myself from the divine mercies. Like an insect in a night of moonlight, mesmerized by it without understanding the luminosity that battles everything with exquisite beauty. And this is Manuel de Miranda saying, I feel like an insect. Now, of course, his intention is not to make us feel any worse than he is. If he feels like an insect, what am I, right? But again, it's a calling for us to say, look, a man who can actually bring so much comfort to all of us with all these ideas, and he feels this way, it really compels us to think. There's much more for us to learn. There's much more for us to conquer as well. So we hope that we give this glimpse of how is for us to go up high, right? Or to grow with these minds. Let us move on. Chapter 15. Now we're going to the city of justice. We're going to to meet with the justice makers, right? That all of these individuals that we have highlighted at the beginning and past sessions as well, that they're here to prosecute those who are bettering themselves or making a choice to say, I'm going to be a better spirit. Tomorrow I'll be a better person than we are today, as the Gospel according to Spiritism reminds us. And the following day I'll be a better person than I will be tomorrow. It says the following. Once individuals choose to work in a world, to work in the Lord's vineyard, They no longer have idle time or disenchantment, with this activity, knowing that everything is an opportunity for reflections and learning. At our host institution, we never lack the opportunity to help. Human beings are always on a learning curve, constantly exposed to the most diverse experiences to advance their evolution. Why did we bring this here? Number one, it's not only because he starts the chapter reminding us of how much work they were doing, but also to bring us to a consensus that, look, to get to this point, we have to work. I want to just bring a highlight that we have studied or restudied for some of us this past Sunday. We were studying chapter 27 of the Gospel of the book in the realms of mediumship by André Luis. And towards the end of the chapter, Eladio is actually highlighting something really important to André Luis, because they were addressing why people continue to deal or to insist on mundane things, right? Why do they do that? Why do they waste their time? And then Eladio comes and say, this is not about mediumship only, right? But it's about how we only like to deal with people who are under us morally, mentally speaking, or people that are on the same level. Because by the time when we make a decision to grow or to deal with higher minds, we have to put a lot of effort. We have to work hard. And it's not just one decision today, it's today, tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, so on and so on and so on and so forth. By the time we get there, we're looking at these higher minds and they're saying, we're looking at them, oh my God, how am I going to get there, right? So it takes a lot of effort. And when we get there, it's not going to be an easy life. It's going to be continuous work. A lot of work that we're being called right now to connect with them. And rest assured, when we get there, they're going to be helping us. When they see our effort, as Manuel de Miranda said at the beginning on chapter 14, if we pray, if we raise our thoughts, they will come. We're not relegated to suffering for the rest of our or towards eternity, right? So something again for us to really think and upgrade the way we think. A visit to the strongholds of the justice makers. Preparation, I would say. We're dealing with a really dark. The highlights that I'm going to bring here doesn't show everything, but if you read the chapter, you will be like, wow, much like a horror movie or beyond, right? But they come with a strategy on how to get to this place because they know that it's not going to be easy, both in whatever physically, spiritually, and mentally as well. We'll see this. The location was known to Spinelli and Euripides, which two higher order spirits who were working. Actually, Spinelli is the mastermind of the group where that Manuel de Miranda is part of. Euripides in his own ways that I think we have mentioned about him again on session 3, I think 2 or 3, if you want to look into it. It was located in a swampy region close to a mountain range, and they actually had access to a blueprint of the location that was presented by Spinelli through a screen projector. So imagine this. Okay, we're going to visit this location to help some needy individuals, and we were projecting on the screen the blueprint. And when you look at a true blueprint of a place, since they're using here, I'm taking this literally, that is literally every single thing. I mean, you see every single size, dimension, where this room, how to get to this room, how to get out of this room, everything. And we're going to see that it's that detailed. The form beings, as they projected as well on the screen, they were able to see what was going on in the location too. So the form beings, slightly similar to primitive hairy biotypes, brandishing long pieces of wood, roamed the outside margins as guards or lookouts. Strange and funeral sounds came and went in a flashing of thunder preceded by lightning, which tore through the darkness and seemed to split the soil, shaken by their impact. It resembled the period of the first Homo erectus, more apes than humans. These are the individuals that were there. Our mentor explained that due to its primitive geographical conditions, the multicellular construction had been used for centuries since the period of the barbarian invasions, and that it had been expanded and worked on for more extensive, hideous purposes. So, just like chapter 14, we have these amazing structure that were created many, many years ago to help many, many individuals throughout time. The same thing is this location here. And now they're trying to get to the location to talk to these individuals, these justice makers, to help them grow, evolve, right? And we continue. Let me continue and then we'll. So, what was the strategy? What do they have in mind? How are we going to get to the place? All of these things were well thought out. After a delayed analysis, Euripus proposed that we wait until nightfall to take full advantage of the darkness, after which our groups, staying next to one of the well-guarded excesses, would wait for the arrival of some of the hooded entities and then join them, crossing the narrow bridge over a putrid swamp. And once inside, we would mix the successive groups wandering through this space. In the meantime, an expressive group of spirits identified by the functions they performed approached us. Soon I realized that they were, in fact, specialists in a type of engineering unknown to me. So this is Euripides showing to them. And then this group of engineers that he has no idea what type of engineering this is, they come and they were welcomed by Euripides. And this is what they were working on. They focus specifically on the foundations of the building in the layers of the said landscape we would soon enter. They carefully comfort with each other about the special equipment necessary to dislodge the fluidic structure of the underground and lugubrious rooms transformed into strange punitive dungeons and promiscuous and miserable collective dwellings. After a thorough analysis, they settled on the more efficient way to transplant the whole compound, leaving behind nature's physical landscape, which future cave explorers would identify as fantastic galleries without the slightest idea of what had happened there for centuries. So what they're trying to do is to it's hard to even comprehend this. They're taking a whole colony of low-order spirits and they're taking there and planting someplace else. Imagine if we take this, have you seen when they actually try to salvage a house, for example, a historical house, that they kind of take the foundation of the house, maintaining the whole structure, and they move someplace else by a huge truck, right? And they have to calculate everything. This is exactly what they're trying to do. However, this is in the physical, in the spiritual realm, to a completely different dimension where they're not be connecting to Earth anymore. Yes, this is, when I read, I was like, wow, this is. So these engineers, again, as Manuel de Miranda says, is beyond our comprehension what they're trying to do, because they're manipulating this whole environment that was created, right, mentally speaking, to another zone where they no longer will be connected with planet Earth. Why? Because we're going through a transition. And here's the question, and I was joking with Daniel about this, that we're talking about something else, no need for us to bring it here, nothing crazy, people. But we're joking about, sometimes we tend to think about what is there in a planet of regeneration, right? And for me, who is very materialistic, it's very hard to think because, it's hard to connect with my mentor. But there's one thing that is very easy for us to do. What will not be in a planet of regeneration? It's very easy for us to do that, right? So anything that is destructive, anything that does not go along with progress, right? And we can go, since I'm going to stop right there because I don't want to go too far from this idea that we're studying here. But locations like this on planet Earth will no longer be allowed. So they need to be giving, not extracted. We can say that, yes, they're going to be taken someplace else, so we can use the word extracted. But then they will be given the opportunity to grow, but in a different way, because they no longer connect with the thoughts and ideals that is happening on planet Earth today. Hope that that helps you understand, because it may seem like, oh, they're being expelled. There is yeah, some of us may see, that they're being expelled, but there is a reason why, right? There is a reason why. At the location, the region, even for us, was of difficult access. Despite our best efforts, nonetheless, expert in rescue missions and regular visit had created single file paths that led to the compound's entrance. I stop right here because he also mentions that um, many rescue groups already went to this location to help them grow, and they're given the ability to doing these rescue missions. They gave the ability for many of these spirits who were there, suffering spirits, to grab a hold of that opportunity and to rescue themselves and to change the way they live. So that this was not the only one. I can say that this is the final time that they were given this opportunity, as we're gonna see. But there were moments before that many rescue missions had been provided to this location as well. Continue at the location. We were warned to be prudent with our sentiments of compassion for the pain, understanding for their pain, understanding that they had spontaneously chose that habitat. Among them were also the deceivers begging for mercy, recalling the mythological sirens of Homer's Odyssey, who lured the distracted or curious sailors with their hypnotic silent singing voices, only to devour them later. We saw several examples of these whipping impostors appearing before us to inspire pity, but who in reality were crafty obsessors trying to divert us from the secure pathway in order to topple us into their traps. After approximately half an hour, we crossed the pestilential bayou and reached solid ground. They carefully conferred with each other about the special equipment necessary to dislodge the fluidic the structure of the underground and lugubrious rooms, transferred into strange punitive dungeons and promiscuous, miserable collective dwellings. I believe this is actually from the other passage there. Feeling anguish, Euripus told me to think of Jesus and his love, because here the majority is made of those who loathe him, in case Jesus, and other who deceived him. So it's so drastic. The situation is so down, like the psychosphere of the place is so down that Manuel de Miranda, as to me consider a high order spirit, we can put him. I like to put him way above me. He starts feeling anguish, and then quickly Euripides say, "Remember of Jesus, think of Jesus," right? And his vibration, he kind of picks himself up again, mentally speaking, and start, praying. Inside of a large room, trials were taking place. Justice was being applied. Right? Justice was being applied by evil judges, and then criminals were being tried. Some of them leaders of dishonest religious cults, other community and government authorities that had usurped public assets. So, who was at trial? These individuals that are now corrupting society, corrupting themselves, right? I would say themselves first, and then as a consequence, unfortunately, many of us, right? As he said here, dishonored religious cults leaders, right? That they get to the other side because their sense of dishonesty, as well as in some of them the guilt that is inside of them, takes them to these locations, and they were being accused by these individuals, right? At the location continues. Some deformed spirits in a degenerative process where they lost their human features, almost unaware of what was happening there, were transferred to another enclosure where they would be hypnotized to complete the modification through the process of ideoplasty. What is he saying here, folks? And I'm not going to read the other one because it's something that to me it was very marking as well. These individuals, they were actually placed in a chamber, if you will, with something in their heads, and they kept listening as he said here, um, you are a wolf. Everything in your house, in you, howls with lupine force. Assume your real personality. They kept hearing the same thing over and over and over and over, that they became those individuals. They became their pair spirit were transformed by repetition, because they were placed in in this condition, and then they were taken to another area that they would finalize this process of subjugation, right? Where they're now being transformed into beasts, right? So what happens? This is the part that that really scares us. I shouldn't say scare, but it's a way for us to understand why sometimes things get to be aggravated in our lives, right? Later explained by Euripides, these entities were sent out during moments of war. So we have something that pops up, an escalation, right? Because when he mentioned here war, it's not what's happening in some other country between two nations. Let us talk about the wars of the self. Let us talk about the wars that we have between ourselves, and then we judge something else. But let's say something sparks between us, indifference or a situation at the spirited center, and these minds, they want to make it worse. Who do they release? These minds that they have trained to create madness, to inflammate the wars that are already inside of us. It's not like that we are, they're we're being punished. No, we open the door to connect with them. The entities were also released to promote the hideous campaign of perversion of the senses in a movement of hatred against Jesus and his disciple. Perversion of the senses. Anything that is connected with us physically, mentally, spiritually, that we allow ourselves to be to create this perversion or to be part of this perversion. What the planet is promoting to us nowadays through social media, through the craziness that we see, right? Through the thought of no, there is no help, right? We are connecting with these minds, and their ideas is just to make more madness, right, on us. Simultaneously, half truth. This is also important. Half truth are spread that are much more dangerous than full lies, because they influence the thought and behaviors of immature and naive individuals who have not yet found themselves. We were being pushed without violence to the center of the room, and when we got to the spot that seemed proper to them, they walked away noisily, leaving us alone. So what happens? And Manuel de Miranda here is not by himself. He has Spinelli, Dr. Spinelli with him. He also has Euripides with him. He has other spirits that are also working when they went to this location. So they're pushed through with this crowd to the center of this room where people were being, or spirits were being trialed, right? And then what happens? He started to have a conversation with the actual, let's say, mastermind of this location, right? I'm not going to bring the whole conversation. What I would like to do is to bring the kindness of this mission, which is only the positive side. I'm going to highlight some of the negative stuff as well, which is the back and forth, some of the back and forth of the conversation that Euripides actually brings or goes through, but mainly highlighting on what Euripides says. And I think it's going to connect with you what we have learned in terms of connecting with the higher minds, the same way they connect with Jesus, right, for us, and the preparation to have a meeting the day prior where they would listen to Ismael, for example, to implement this. Without which, like I said, tomorrow we can say we have no faith, right? And I think this is where we draw from it as well, that God is not only for the higher minds, but God is for all of us. Jesus for all of us. He says the following. After many attacks, because again, to me, it feels like I was watching a movie where we see these things that, there's this shield stopping all the things that is being thrown on an individual, right? And he says that many artifacts were being thrown on them, but it wouldn't hit them. It would just fall. So imagine that, they were in the center of this room, and all these negative minds are throwing things at them, but it would reach them. And they were so serene. Well, at least Eurípides, as Manuel de Miranda says, is very calm, very tranquil. And then the mastermind tells them, let them speak. How did you enter this place? How did you come over here? It says the following: Eurípides took 2 steps forward, and looking at him with commiserable replied, commiseration, excuse me. We are the disciples of the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ, and we came here on his behalf to bring news of his kingdom. We are now undergoing the period known as the coming of times, and soon real justice will be established in the spiritual hearts of humankind, without disguise or despotic domination imposed by force. Because this place calls itself as a city dedicated to it, we were sent here to invite everyone to wake up to the truth, freeing their slaves, opening the doors of prisons, emptying their layers of what they call the application of dominant rules, providing the condemned with the opportunity to repent for their wrongs in order to reincarnate in mass for their redemption in the upcoming last days. Here we come in peace with the purpose of helping you change your attitude, directing you to the light of divine love, but are attacked by the hatred and fear that prevails in you all. I'll stop right here, because then the Spirit starts saying, look, where is this master? We hate this master, talking about Jesus. And the Spirit says that since the time of the Romans, they know about reincarnation. They were reincarnating, and they were actually using their reincarnation to create more madness. They reincarnated in the different representation of Christianity to implement madness within what we can call today the churches. I was amazed. I was like, oh my God. They knew all of this. Now we understand why many of these, let's say, groups under the umbrella of Christianity caused so much pain. Right? So Eurípides continued by saying, Jesus is the Lord and nobody defeats him, because he is the light of the world and the door to salvation. So, why do you hate him? You, my brother, boast about a past that did not obliterate Jesus, because all of that has been done, Christianity still stands very strong. And I say Christianity here, people. It's not. I'm not vouching for this or that church, that's this or that denomination, but the teachings that our Master Jesus have done for us. Besides the Christ that many of us believe, that died for us on the cross, that has its value for us to see and understand that, but the teachings, the perseverance, the work, the legacy that has left for us through the work of many other minds and hearts. He returned, like he says, he returned with his blessed disciples, the missionaries to rehabilitate the ungrateful world, and now his teachings come back to life through us, the immortal spirits. My dear brother, take advantage of this moment. Jesus awaits for you. Surrender to his mercy and free yourself from the hatred that consumes you. We did our duty. There is still time, but once we leave this place, we will have no alternative but to relocate the city to the region of exile that will receive the evildoers. At this point, Manuel de Miranda kind of gives some final words there, nothing much, but the chapter ends right there, right? And it's interesting because it again reminds us of the mercy of God to go into a very difficult condition or state of whatever we want to call, and say, you have another chance. We're not going to just throw you away, but please do this for yourselves, right? For us. They receive the preparation. They coordinate themselves. They pray. They connect with higher minds. Because if this is happening in that location, I'm quite sure, since we saw that the meeting also happened in chapter 14, many parts of the planet, I'm quite sure other rescues were happening as well around the world, right? So I'm going to go ahead and go back and say why we have these accounts, because Brazil, I like to think that, is not, you know better than ourselves. And I say this, because we're talking about a literature that is from, the coming from a medium in Brazil, and not are receiving this information. There are mediums that can connect with these higher minds, and we cannot. And I'm not saying that tomorrow, just because we make a little this tiny effort, we're gonna do the work that they're doing. But we need to start. Think about it. What happened here in the United States? Now going back to our reality here, what happened in the United States in terms of this connection? Why can't we not be part of this work? Alba, your question. I was actually talking to a friend of mine in Brazil as well, and he was telling me, without me telling that I was actually preparing this talk for today. He was telling me exactly that he was having a dream where he was talking to some of these beasts that were mentioned by Manuel de Miranda, and I'm listening, and I'm like, oh my God. And he was able to remember that and he actually even asked the question, was I working in a atmosphere where newly promoted spiritual principles were promoted to become a spirit, that they didn't have much to offer, and they're in this animal like structure. And I say, I don't think so. I think you're working right here. And then I started explaining to him what Manuel de Miranda is mentioning to us here. Yes, Alba, sometimes we don't remember exactly like he did, but perhaps we had a feeling, wow, that was a tough dream. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was a movie that I watched, and you didn't watch any movies, right? Because it's like a horror movie. I mean, if you really look, we dive into it and we read the chapter, it's like a horror movie. Or sometimes we have a resemblance that, yeah, we don't remember, but we feel that. But soon after, we feel better because we pray, because we know that something happened there. So yes, many of us, we are helping, or at least praying, so that these let's say caravans of love are happening. But more work to be done, because I want to engage everyone in terms of how much more can we do to connect with these higher minds. And it doesn't mean that we have to go to these beautiful meetings. I mean, I would love to, but to be more conscientious that, number one, that the work of goodness is being done on planet Earth, on the physical plane, but also in the spiritual for sure, that there are good minds. And yes, we are transitioning to this regenerative moment, but it takes all of us, it takes each one of us to get there and help one another. I would like to move on quickly to our questions and comments. We have a couple more minutes that we can discuss it and go through. But before, I always like to inform that we're successfully moving forward. And then session 9 will encompass hopefully chapter 16 and 17. And then we're moving towards the end of this amazing work for Manuel de Miranda. I'll stop right here. And Daniel, if you can help us with comments, questions that we may have, I'll open for comments and questions here too that we may have. I'll start with Yasko here. Hello, everyone. Hello, Yasko. Great message of Ismael. The exile to inferior world of spirits untouched by goodness, combined with the reincarnation of superior spirits, will help Earth to transition towards a world of regeneration. What would you highlight as our role or goal presently incarnated here to help this transition? Great question. And in a way, maybe I wasn't very direct to the point, but we have to do our efforts to change our thought patterns. And I'll give you a personal example. Many, many times throughout the day, I have a negative thought or feeling, right? What do we do, as Joanna Dion says? Replace it, change it. And how do we change it? By really analyzing goodness, right? The prayer shouldn't be subjective. Prayer should be very objective in terms of what do I like to attain? What do I where do I want to be, right? Or what do I want to achieve? And it can be for our needs, yes, but at the end, it should also um, to help others as well, because we also have to believe that if I receive the goodness, I will also propose and help others to receive the goodness as well, and I will spread the love as well. You know, if I get a better salary, guess what? The environment in my house will improve as well, right? Because we'll be able to get, and I'm using this again, money in terms for us to understand. So the same thing goes to the source, the resources that the spiritual realm can offer us. The more I do, the better will be my environment, because the less I will think of negative thoughts. I will have negative thoughts or feelings. Um, and this is not for us to think that I have to do amazing things. As Chico Xavier said, Jesus is not asking us to climb Mount Everest, right? Jesus is asking for us to, through our struggles, the way we understand life, to do our best. And if at the end of the day, we can examine our conscience, as is reminded to us in the Gospel according to Spiritism, that we did our best, we connected with our Creator through our actions, through our thoughts, through our feelings, tomorrow will be a better day, right? It's not for us to do anything amazing that really, makes us think that, oh, Leo is amazing, or Paul is amazing, or Yasko is amazing. The amazement will come as we collective start doing this more and more, right? And hopefully this transition will come to pass much faster. And I want to highlight one thing here too, folks, because when we think of a planet of regeneration, it's not that we're going to be happy. There's no happiness yet. And we can go back to older sessions, to the previous books of Manuel de Miranda that precedes this one here, and we also see that the classifications of planets is not that we're going to go into a happy planet. Happy planet will come after the order of regeneration. So, will there be negative thoughts? Yes. But the calling will be for us to, you know what, I don't want to fall on this again, right? My body's saying, go, eat that chocolate. But guess what? That chocolate will create, will create some results that are not, first of all, necessary. And secondly, will also be detrimental to not only me, but others. Because if I fall, my loved ones will also feel anguish, right? They won't feel unhappy. So now we start taking a different approach in life and saying, it's about me, but it's also about the collective as well. And towards that work, and many, many years to come, we'll reach happiness, right? Until the day we become celestial beings, and then it will become a very interesting planet. But that's way ahead of us. And I hope that helps, Yasko. And I know we can go much more into this, but in any case, hopefully that helps a little bit. Paula.
Thank you. That was excellent. This remains my favorite book currently. You made an interesting statement that I'm still thinking about. You said a lot that we can think about, but obviously this is a personal response to something you said. When we look to people not as evolved to us, or when we enjoy hanging out with our peers, it's a different story when we look to souls more advanced, because that requires work. Now, would it be helpful if we raised children and we made sure that people understood that being on this earth is a privilege, and the point of incarnation is to do inner work, which helps us do better outer work?
You answered your question, I
Probably
think.
did, but
And it's both. Let me read the passage, if I may.
I want to ask
Okay,
you
go
about
ahead.
another. No, I don't want to mix the two. The
Okay.
other one's a different
So
topic.
let me read the passage, because I have it right here, because I was going to read it as well. But since you asked, I think it's important. It's a beautiful part of Eulides saying, you have to remember that this is not in keeping with Spiritist teachings. And this is, again, addressing the idea of the ineffective work, to say the least, that is being done with mediumship. We are witnessing mediumistic phenomena manipulated by the idle minds inclined to the base exploitation wherever they are, and for that reason, deserving of our pity. We are fully aware of the fact that mediumistic phenomena are peculiar to all sanctuaries and all individuals. As for our friends, preference for living around discarnate still strongly bound to the sensorial field of physical life, very materialistic. Incapable of a broader vision of the reality of the spirit, well, that is understandable. It's always easier, this is the part that is very important. It is always easier for ordinary individuals to work with subordinates or equals, since working alongside the more evolved requires goodwill, discipline, right conduct, and a firm desire to improve. We know that death is no miracle worker. Each person awakens beyond the grave in the spiritual position that he or she has sought out. Ordinary individuals feel more at ease with spirits that flatter their passions and stimulate their appetites. When we find ourselves around more evolved fellow beings, we feel compelled to educate ourselves, for they have already learned to sublimate their personal impulses, dedicating themselves to the incessant cultivation of the good. So, yes, it's very easy. And we get, it's the complacency, right? Of, oh, I'm this, this is the environment. I'll give you, and I say this to my family members all the time. Thank God I do have, I would say, consider very strong immune system where I come in contact with people that have a cold or something, and I don't get it. Thank God. I'll give an example, and that's, you can laugh at this. Is, everybody at the house contracted COVID, and I was exposed to them. I did not get. I tested negative. Well, they're testing positive. Thank God. I know I was joking. Even COVID doesn't want me, right? But at the same token, I try to make a point that yes, everybody has a cold. It's cold season, right? Or yeah, huh? Not a COVID, but doing flu season. Excuse me, flu season. But that doesn't mean I have to get it. I'm gonna be like Jeanette over here, wearing the mask. I'm gonna wash my hands. I'm gonna take a shower every time I come home from work, right? Because I deal with the public. So we have preventive measures to do. Just because everybody's doing or is going through, I don't have to go through. It's not being sensitive or anything, but no, I have to also have the desire or the choice to say, I'll live a better life. But it takes work, it takes dedication. And I'm not exalting myself to say I'm perfect. This is because this is a calling for me as well, right? But yes, it takes the inner transformation and it takes the outer as well to say, look, that's wrong. In a nice way, because obviously at the end, we cannot stop people from doing crazy stuff. Go back to what I said at the beginning. It's not that we don't care, right? But first, let's look at ourselves. And yes, children is the same thing, right? It also entails of, to a certain extent, after you say it once, twice, and 3 times, guess what? The person has to live it through it, right? They have to experience, because number one, we have a past with some of the individuals, right? And I talk about kids directly. They have this sense of defiance, right? That, oh, he doesn't know anything. I know everything. We went through that, right? When we told our parents, when we looked at our parents and said, now, there's a level of respect that we have to carry on, right? And to one point is it's very sad, but on another hand, right, it's very liberating, because we also, as the spirits here, are teaching us that they have their choice. We give the ability for that to happen, right? But also ultimately will be their choice, because we cannot impose over the will of others. So I hope that helps. And I just find this passage amazing that we studied last Sunday.
Yeah, no, that was wonderful. And
Thank
just
you.
to add to Yaska's question of what do we do practically, I liked your analogy of the wars are not just the external wars on the earth, but they're internal wars.
Mm-hmm.
So the extra beasts are going to jump in, So as we work with our own thoughts and judgments and feel like we're making progress with our inner war, then it's going to be a contribution to the world.
Right.
And the other, I think the other, I want to get this other question because I don't
Sure.
want to keep talking. Now more. As Kirsten likes to show the iceberg, that there's so much more in that unconscious part. But as it starts to bubble up and we've tackled something, and it's not like, oh, wow, now I can live on a beach for the rest of my life. Another layer is going to come up, but you get more skilled in this process. So this work at some point becomes joyful because you realize you're making progress. Now, here's my.
The serotonin is start kicking in, and you're like, wow, this is cool. I'm going to do it again, right?
I'll give myself a break in between. On page 222, I just wanted a little clarification on paragraph 2, the second part of the first sentence. Diseases will continue to erupt in regional epidemics according to the degree of their hideousness and moral offenses. If you could spend time on the word there, THEIR.
All right. So because of this is the paragraph. Because of their criminals, of these criminals, lauded by some and hated by others, diseases will continue to erupt in regional epidemics according to the degrees of their hideousness, right?
Hideousness
And moral offenses.
And those are the criminals who are profiteering on the pandemic, the greedy ones. Is that who we're talking about here?
It includes that as well, but do not. One of the things that I learned from these chapters as well, that he's talking directly about some of these individuals that are taking advantage of what happened to us during the pandemic, but the exploitations that happens every single day. Different pandemics that we have, not just the COVID-19. When we look at in certain parts of our system that we're part of it, where since we're talking about a physical issue, right, where we know that there are many other ways to treat certain physical elements, right, and we choose to go into or really insist on something that the remedies, and I'm talking about the pharmaceutical companies and all that, they're for profit, and they are doing things, they're promoting things in the market. And I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but I'm just giving an example of the choices that we are making, between ourselves, and we are part of it. Because it's very easy for me to go and say, oh, the system is corrupted. But let's go back again to our inner war. How do I treat my body sometimes? I have a headache. Well, 4 pills inside. What is causing the headache? I'm also being very difficult on my body, right? So you see, again, the inner war, right? So the issues will continue until we stop and say, enough is enough. We have to rethink about ourselves so that perhaps this will reflect in the magnitude, right? How we will make choices at work, how we'll make choices towards a group of people that we're leading, as if we're a manager or if we're a leader in a specific place. How am I going to be teaching history if I don't think of history to help the future? It's just to diminish myself or to diminish others. And now I'm going to the teaching part. And forgive me for those who are in the working for the hospital. How can I treat someone more humane, right? If I don't treat myself well, if I'm working with patients, if I'm a doctor, if I'm a nurse, right? So all of these things, it takes us a lot of work from all of us. And I'm not saying this once more, please don't think I'm judging, but really to call our attention, how can I do better, right? How do I want, maybe one day turn the TV and look at beautiful things when I only think of negative things, only when I promote only the negativity around me. Does that help?
Yes, and what I'm taking from this is we'll just use the pandemic because it was a main focus through these books. It's appears to me like it's a necessary course correction and a great opportunity to open minds and grow in consciousness. So ultimately, what is a very difficult situation becomes the bridge to a better place.
Right. It's an opportunity. Yes. It's us taking. I'm glad that you say this because I'll finalize with this because of time. But it's us taking the difficulty that is in front of us and believing, you know, heartily as well, that um, that is an opportunity that I need to evolve, and that is why I emphasize on the fact that all of these, the Ismael came, as this higher mentor, the closest thing that one of the closest the spirits that we have to Jesus came down and said, let's help these people because they need help. And before they went and helped, because without which they wouldn't have the foundation to work with them. That's why, again, Euripides said, think of Jesus, right? Be prepared, be compassionate, right? To help them. And it's the same thing towards us. As we go and we also think about our flaws, it would be very easy for us to look at someone else's flaw and say, you know what? I've been there. That doesn't mean we're going to say, yes, let them do whatever they want because they're going through their transition now, right? Jesus also taught us to say yes, yes, no, no, in certain times, and I think that's what we need to exemplify and do in our life. So, I would like to thank everyone for the questions, the comments, the 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 highlight, if I could bring it again, is for us to connect with these higher minds. And one of the ways that we can connect with these higher minds is by reading the book. Take the book, read it. It's just amazing. It's not that reading that perhaps you're going to read all throughout because you're going to be boggled. You're going to be like, oh my God, really? Let me read this again. And it's okay if you spend an entire month on one chapter because it's just that amazing. And Paul is here shaking her head. It is. It's one of the best books out of this trilogy that we have been studying. And I am glad that we're bringing this at SSB because, as Alba said at the beginning very well, we're going through this transition and it's part of us. So, with no further ado, I would like to close over here. As we mentioned, because of time, we'll say the final prayer and offer everyone through the prayer a moment of passes as well at their homes, at their places wherever you may be, connecting with their higher minds as well. We would like to give thanks to our dear Creator for this amazing opportunity that we had to bring some of the passages of this book, of these two chapters, so enlightening, so pertaining to our days today, to diminish the struggles that we're going through and to understand that we're not alone, that we have our mentors, our guides, the mentors of the SSB or whoever or whatever institution we're part of. Dear Mother, Father God, bless us all in both realms of life. Help us understand our flaws, our difficulties, and transform them into opportunities. That by doing so, we can also elevate other minds that are with us, as if we were in a highway, driving in the speed limit that is assigned to the highway. Perhaps a little bit slower because we don't want to go as far. We don't want to do anything that may hurt ourselves and others. And by doing so, we will help the flow of evolution that has to also go with us or perhaps through us for those who wants to go a little bit faster. But we ask that we all pay attention to one another without creating turmoil, creating difficulties in our lives. at least to understand that we are all in this beautiful highway called eternity that will take us to our destinations in the here now and the beyond, promoting kindness, love, help, so that each one of us, as we get to our destinations, we can promote new trips to higher grounds, to higher realms. This way, we invite everyone to connect with our mentors more often than we have been doing. We invite everyone to read more uplifting passages, as Joanna de Angelis says, to sleep less, sleep enough to rest our physical bodies, but not to give in to the temptations of laziness and discouragement. Knowing that there are many for us, despite the difficulties that we face, who wants us to get up in the morning, whether in the physical and the spiritual realm, and be productive with our lives, and be guided by the light that shines upon all of us. We pray that each one of us can put this into practice, being thankful for one another, for having the comfort that, my gosh, we're not alone. There are others like me, that are others like him and her, that also are looking for the guidance that our Master Jesus has proposed to all of us. And hopefully all of us together will find our ways sooner than later in this great universe. We thank you, dear Lord, and we now stay in prayer as we invite those who are here at the SSB for the passes. If we're home, we would like to bid you farewell and receive also this guidance.